Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 7 of MBA 590, Introduction to Digital Marketing. Let me just check to make sure everything's going. Yep. Oh, there's me shutting the doors. Okay, so it's working. Okay. So I just want to kind of quickly go over what the absolute must-dos for the week. So obviously, at the top of it is to watch the week 7 videos, which are all on user experience and how to design good user experience, plus a few articles on how to dummy up or kind of prototype, if you will, what a user experience would look like. So that's why they're as part of this week. And so I look over Glyphy, or Balsamic, and Wix, right? Just to show you how you might want to prototype. And Wix actually you could use, it's not just a prototype tool, you could actually use Wix for your whole website if you wanted to. But I highly recommend taking advantage of these tools in your final project as well, right? They're very useful for that. You can use them to kind of showcase what an app you might be building for your company would look like, or kind of designing the website or designing the creative content in some interesting way, right? So those are, definitely watch those videos. There's also a new Internet of Things article, right? This is actually, so GfK, which is one of the largest marketing companies in Germany, if not all of Europe, and probably one of the largest ones in the world, honestly. They release I think it's quarterly magazine called Marketing Intelligence Review, and they commissioned a special issue on Internet of Things, and I was asked to contribute to that. So this is my podcast. So this is my not podcast. This is my article that I wrote for that. Just thinking about too many podcasts on my mind after last week and talking about that. Okay, so take a look at that. There's questions already up on Top Hat. Also, go ahead and look over Chapter 5 if you want. That's the one that talks about user experience. So that's the optional reading for this week. Okay, so those are the must-dos, right? Watch the week 7 videos, read the Internet of Things article, and look over Chapter 5. Of course, one other thing that we'll get to in a bit is that you could start working on your situation analysis. If not, well, you should be working on your situation analysis. Let's put it that way, if you haven't already, because that's due fairly shortly. Okay, but let's talk about the other little bits of administrative trivia to go over. So first of all, you should now have all received your introduction. I did notice there was at least one comment on one student's grades not matching their group grade. I'll look into that to see if there's any more instances than that, but that was one that should not happen, and I'll kind of look into that and talk to the grader about, or the teaching assistant, why that might have happened. The conceptual assignment hopefully has all been turned in. You got in on time, everything like that. We'll be working on that this week. I may have it done for you by the end of this week, if not next week for sure. Then the only other two things I want to talk about today are the situation analysis, what you want to do for that, and the Amazon search ads reading. So if you have any questions, you can always email them to me, and I'll be happy to talk about them during the office hours. If you have any questions and you're watching right now, you can just type them into the YouTube chat window. And as always, right, make sure and do that early on, because sometimes by the time I get the message, I'll have already hung up or something like that. There's a delay between what you are seeing live on the stream and when I'm saying it, right? So there's about 30 seconds or so between the two. So make sure and ask your questions early on so that I see them in time before I'm hanging up, okay? So let's talk a little bit about the situation analysis, since that is probably the most important. Let me bring up my little screen with that on it. Okay. Sorry for some dead silence. Just give me a second to get this all set up. Okay, let's see. Where's Adobe? There it is, all the way at the top. Okay. So here you go. So here is the group project diagram. You should have all seen this a couple of times by now, right? But description. Let me make sure. Let me try and get this so that both you're seeing at the same time that I'm seeing it. Okay. So, if you remember correctly, I already did the intro, so that should all be set. There's only 2 parts that are kind of required for the situation analysis in the next section. They're parts 5, and they're labeled 7. I deleted a section a while ago, so I should renumber this document. Anyways, 5 and 7 is what's going to be due, and it's due, by the way, on February 28th, so about 9 days from today, right? So you should be well on your way to getting this filled out, if not already have finished it with your group, okay? So one quick note, there's 3 important things I'm going to tell you about the situation analysis. One, and 2 of them have to do with the general comments about this, about the project document, right? So first of all, with regards to the project document, one thing I want to make clear is that this document is not meant to be a question and answer, right? You should not be turning in a document that says 5A, who is the target market, and then answering that. 5A, where are they located, and then answering that. 5B, what will they encourage? That's not what I want. What I want is for you to present to me the best, 10 to 15 pages, as it says here, right? Marketing plan that you can on digital marketing, right? These questions are meant more as prompts, things for you to think about, scaffolding to support your inquiry as you go forward to try and write this plan. So if there's a question here that's not relevant to you, right? What websites does the target market visit? If you're not going to really take advantage of the answer to that question, then you don't have to discuss it, right? These are just things I think you should think about. Everything in here should be kind of leading towards your recommendations and your conclusions, right? They should not, they should be building up to that. And so to that extent, only include the comments and the statements and the parts that you think are relevant for that. Okay? So that's one important thing I want to say. Second, second important thing, well, let's talk through this for a second. So this section 5, is set up so that kind of you're doing a basic situation analysis, right? So the first, say, 3 questions are all focused on who are the current and potential users, right? The second set of questions, right, is about competitors, right? And then there's some questions about the environment, right? And then there's the SWOT analysis. And I would say a couple of quick things about this. First of all, the SWOT analysis, in general, I find that a very useful tool. And if you do as well, then I definitely think you should include it in this document, right? The other thing I would say is that this kind of idea of comparing competitors, that's also very useful. And so I would highly recommend doing some sort of comparison to your competitors, right? And I would think a little bit more broadly about who the competitors are. You can kind of think of 3 classes or categories of competitors, right? There's brands that offer almost the exact same thing we do and do it almost in the exact same way we do, right? The second group of competitors is, and so that would be like, I'm selling, ski boots online, and there's another company out there that sells ski boots online, right? That's the exact same thing. The second set of competitors is people who do something similar within your industry, right? But maybe sell it in a different way. So I sell my ski boots online, but you could just go to your local ski store and buy some as well, right? The third set of competitors are competitors who are competing for a similar share of wallet, right? So, for instance, I sell ski boots. I'm hoping that I'll take advantage of some of my consumers win a recreational money, right? So you might think about other options people would have, right? Like maybe they could go snowshoeing, or maybe they could go ice skating, right? Or something like that. And it might be worthwhile to talk a little bit about how those might help, might compete, and right, and what kinds of social media and what kind of digital marketing they use. You don't have to include those share of wallet competitors, but if there's one that makes sense to include, then definitely do it. The other thing I would say is that you obviously can't include every competitor, right? Because every competitor would be way too much for this document. So just include maybe some key representative examples of each of those, okay? So this is where I'm going to talk about the second overall big key to this document. And this pertains to the whole document. Second big overall key is that you're driving towards a digital marketing solution. And to that extent, every single thing that you include should be supporting that, right? So if talking about, like for instance, in the ski boot example, it might be the case that I really want to outcompete other ski boot manufacturers or other ski boot retailers, right? And I don't really care about Amazon, right? Because Amazon's just too generic and too specific, and I don't think anyone's going to go there. If that's the case, right, then you don't need to talk about Amazon at all, right? It's also the case that you don't need to talk about anything if it doesn't affect your digital marketing strategy. So for instance, there's this question down here about demand trend, right? And if I'm not going to really take advantage of the demand trend in my marketing plan, then it's fine to just ignore it. One way to ask your question, does this need to be in our report, is to think, if I add the line, and that's why we need to develop this digital marketing plan, to any single paragraph, it should make sense, right? If it doesn't make sense, then you need to rethink what you're writing and probably eliminate that paragraph, okay? So that's the second big key, sorry. First one was, don't answer all the questions, just write the best marketing plan you can. Second big key is make sure it all pertains to digital marketing as much as possible. In particular, the digital marketing plan that you're developing. So those are the two big keys. The third big key has to do with the marketing objectives and goal. And this is where I'm going to give you a very concrete way to do this, right? So in each case, I want you to state 3 to 5 SMART goals. And each of those SMART goals should include an explanation as to why you chose that SMART goal. And it should include probably 1 to 3 KPIs of how you're going to measure whether or not you're achieving that SMART goal, right? So this is a very concrete section. It can almost be 1, maybe 2 pages, where you have a bulleted SMART goal, and then under that you have why that SMART goal is important, and then you have how you're going to measure success. And those can be interchanged. It could be how to measure success and then why that goal is important. But you understand the basic idea. So this should be able to be done in about 3 to 5 paragraphs, right? Because you really only need like maybe a sentence for the SMART goal and probably 2 to 3 sentences for the measurements and the justification. Okay? So those are 3 big keys I wanted to leave you with, right? The first one is don't answer all the questions, just present the best marketing plan you can. The second one, the second big key that was discussion is always describe why what you're saying, or always make sure that what you're saying is somehow related to digital marketing. And the third is to make sure when you're doing the SMART goals, develop the goal, develop an explanation for why you chose the goal, and develop a KPI that you're going to use to measure success, right? One last small comment, this really isn't major, but in the introduction, you could kind of get away with just writing what you were thinking and writing it straight down, right? But now we're getting into a case where the situation analysis could become pretty detailed. And so just writing one narrative flow of text is probably not helpful. I would suggest breaking up your text with the headings like competitors, environment, firm resources, right? Rather than kind of just trying to write it all at once. So make sure you do that. After all, if I hand a 20-page digital marketing plan to a CEO with no highlighting, no headlines, no bolded words or anything like that, it's going to be very, very hard for them to comprehend the information. Probably, chances are they're not, right? So you kind of want to get away from that. You want to focus on a more structured representation of the actual marketing report, digital marketing plan. Okay, so that's it for the situation analysis. Hopefully that's helpful, and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about today is the Amazon search ads. Okay. Oh wait, there's a quick question that came up about submitting the situation analysis. Do you want us to include the intro context we submitted before as well for context? Usually it's helpful to do that, right? I won't probably go back and regrade that at this time unless unless you tell me that something dramatically has changed. But that way, yeah, just in case we need to look back and get additional content, it's helpful to include it. But you don't have to. You're not going to lose points if you don't include it, right? Okay. So let's talk about Amazon searches. Let me bring up my slide deck on that. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Bring it up. Okay, gotcha. Okay, here we go. So, let me do it this way, just so I have all this. Okay. So, the Amazon ad reading I find is very interesting, is that unlike Google, which allows you to advertise in many different venues, essentially Amazon only allows you to advertise on Amazon or with Amazon affiliates, right? And, you know, first of all, it's interesting to me to find out that essentially, right, Amazon is one of the largest search engines out there, or largest, advertising platforms out there. And what's interesting, why that's interesting to me, is that it really isn't, it's not like something like Google or Bing or something like that, where you're advertising against other people's content. You're essentially only advertising against Amazon's content. You pay for sponsored listings, which place your product at the top of the search listings. You pay to get, you know, all these different designations that Amazon has out now. And as much as 12% of a product's price that you see on Amazon could just be for advertising. 6% is for shipping that Amazon's charging, and 50% is just to even list the product in the first place. Right? The advantages to Amazon, right, is that it's a very closed ecosystem, and so as a result, they have all this knowledge about past users who purchased this item, right? And you have that too as a marketer, right? Because it's a closed ecosystem, you get the ability to know more about who the past users are. This knowledge is also going to help better determine whether or not to advertise at a particular time. Now, the disadvantage is that really that network is really only a part of Amazon affiliates right now. It's not like there are that many places where if you invest in Amazon ads, you're going to be able to advertise it. In order to really be its own product, right, Amazon's going to need to grow it and increase the search. And they can't grow advertising separately from the base business in many ways right now. So they'd have to make that. It's controversial, right, because Amazon is charging people who are also using the site. In some respect, it's cutting into its potential profits from listing the product with no advertising, right? So if I list the product with no advertising, then I don't have to charge you that additional amount, which you would expect would mean that people would be able to set the prices in such a way that they would, that Amazon would actually reap more benefit. And, you know, like anything, privacy invasion is a big concern, right? The truth of the matter is that the Amazon knows a lot about a lot of its clients. And so there is that concern that by providing that information to marketers and advertisers, they're kind of treading a thin line that really releases too much of that information. So if you were to go forward, right, I asked the question, if you were going to go forward, how would you actually go forward and use this knowledge? Like one way to think of this is you could develop a rule of thumb for allocate all the funds between Google, Amazon, and Facebook. And would you use the same strategy for each? How would you then optimize that strategy overall, right? And I actually had, this is not a theoretical question, I just had this conversation with a former MBA student about how figuring out how to allocate the advertising budget, right? And one of the points that she made that I thought was really powerful was that, you know, we might sell more product through other venues, right? But the nice thing about the Amazon model is it's kind of seamless. It's easy to get the content. if we wanted to sell that same content on our own e-commerce website, it would take a lot more effort, right? So sometimes it makes sense to just sell it on Amazon and pay for the advertising on Amazon, right? And that is one possible response, right? So given what you now know about how Amazon ads work, right? How would you go about determining how much money to spend on Amazon, or what percentage of your budget to spend on Amazon? And do you think that would be a successful strategy? I'll leave that for you to kind of ponder over at home and kind of take away, because there isn't a clear answer at this point. Right? So anyways, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. If there are any additional questions, please shoot me an email or let me know. Good luck with your situation analysis, and let me know if you have any questions on that. So just to recap from the top, right? Make sure this week to watch the videos on user experience, including the ones on Glyphy, Balsamiq, and Wix. Read over the Internet of Things article and answer the questions on Talpat regarding that. And then, if you have the time, read Chapter 5 of the textbook, which talks about user experience. So that's it for today. If there are any other questions, shoot me an email, and I'll bring them up in the next office hour. Thank you all. Take care.